Have you ever been betrayed by the two people you trusted most, and then handed them the perfect opportunity to ruin themselves? When I found out my husband was cheating on me with my own sister, the pain nearly crushed me. But instead of breaking down, I got clever. I planned one unforgettable night, a dinner that neither of them would ever forget. My sister, Vanessa, wasn't just my sibling, she was my best friend, my confidant, my anchor through every storm life hurled at me. We'd grown up sharing secrets under the covers, defending each other in the schoolyard, and leaning on one another through heartbreaks and life's disappointments. As adults, that bond deepened. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, the first person I called when I got my promotion, and the one who held my hand through our mother's funeral. I believed we had something unbreakable, something sacred. Vanessa wasn't just family. She was my safe place. I trusted her with everything, including my heart, my husband, and every intimate detail of my life. That trust wasn't blind. It was earned through years of shared tears, whispered confessions, and unconditional support. I told her things I never told anyone else. She knew how much I loved Daniel. She saw the way I looked at him, the way I clung to him in hard times. And that's what made the betrayal so venomous. It wasn't just a random woman who took my husband. It was someone who knew exactly how much it would destroy me. Someone who chose to smile in my face while laying in my bed when I wasn't looking. She didn't just steal my husband. She desecrated every moment of trust we'd built since we were children. Daniel and I had the kind of relationship people envied. At least that's what I believed. We met at a friend's barbecue and clicked instantly. Same sarcastic humor, love for travel, matching work ethics. I fell for him hard and fast. He proposed on a rainy Sunday morning with coffee in hand and a shaky voice that told me he was as terrified as he was certain. That was the man I married. Steady, loyal, grounded. I thought we were solid. We shared dreams of owning a house in the suburbs, of having 2 kids and a Labrador. I believed in us with every fiber of my being. It wasn't just love, it was partnership. We tackled bills, supported each other's careers, and weathered those inevitable rough patches with what I thought was grace. I trusted him completely. Daniel wasn't just my husband, he was my home. I never once questioned his loyalty. Never once checked his phone or doubted his late nights. If he was quiet, I chalked it up to stress. If he pulled away, I told myself everyone needed space. I never imagined he was pulling away because he had already found comfort in someone else. Someone with my blood. Looking back, the signs were always there, like small cracks forming in a foundation you swear is solid. I remember noticing the way Vanessa laughed a little too loudly at Daniel's jokes, even the unfunny ones. Or how she'd touch his arm when she talked to him, lingering just a bit longer than necessary. At first I brushed it off. She was affectionate by nature. But over time those moments began to stack. They'd exchange glances across rooms that I couldn't quite decode. Private smiles I wasn't part of. I'd walk in on hushed conversations that abruptly ended the moment I appeared. My gut twisted, but my heart refused to believe it. There was one night we had a family dinner at our place. Vanessa arrived early to help in the kitchen, something she rarely did. Daniel came in late from work, and when he walked through the door, they locked eyes for just a moment too long. Something electric passed between them. I caught it. I felt it. But when I asked Vanessa later, she laughed, called me paranoid, and hugged me tightly like she always did. And Daniel? He kissed my forehead and said I was imagining things. Maybe I wanted to believe that. Maybe I needed to. Because the alternative was too cruel to be real. The truth came to me the way truth always does. Messy, brutal, and completely by accident. Daniel had left his phone on the nightstand while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for anything. I was actually trying to set a reminder for our upcoming dinner reservation. But the moment I unlocked it, a message popped up. Last night was perfect. I hate sneaking around, but I love being with you. The sender? Vanessa, my sister. I froze. Everything in my body stopped working. My heart, my lungs, my ability to understand what I was reading. I opened their thread. Hundreds of messages. Pictures. Plans. Lies. All of it. I sat there for what felt like hours, scrolling through the grotesque reality of my life. She told him she loved him. He told her he wished he'd met her first. They had been seeing each other for nearly 6 months. 6 months of holding my hand, smiling at my face, and sleeping with each other behind my back. The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even scream. I just sat there, staring at the shattered reflection of everything I thought was real. The worst part wasn't losing my husband. It was losing the one person who was supposed to protect me from this exact kind of heartbreak. My sister was supposed to be my shield, not the dagger in my back. She knew every wound I carried, every fear, every scar, and she used that knowledge not to support me but to take what was mine. That kind of betrayal doesn't just cut you, it burns you alive from the inside out. She didn't just have an affair. She chose to compete with me. And she won not because she was better, but because she was willing to betray someone who would have given her the world. After I found out, I tried to confront Vanessa. I called her, shaking with fury, but I couldn't form words. When she answered, cheerful and clueless, I hung up. I didn't want to hear her lies. I didn't want her fake tears or pathetic apologies. She didn't deserve the courtesy of a conversation. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with infidelity. I was dealing with treason. And the people who committed it were the ones I had loved the most. Eventually, I had to confront Daniel. I couldn't hold the truth inside any longer. It was poisoning me. He came home that night like nothing was wrong. I waited until we were sitting across from each other at the dinner table. I remember every second. The clink of his fork, the flicker of candlelight, the way he casually asked about my day. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I slid his phone across the table and simply said, "I know." He stared at it for a long time. Then he looked up at me. And instead of shame or guilt, there was this cold, detached expression, like I had just inconvenienced him with the truth. There were no apologies, no begging, just a long, tense silence that settled over the room like fog. I asked him why, and he didn't even try to justify it. He just said, "I didn't plan for it to happen." That was it. As if that somehow excused everything. I think a part of me died in that moment. Not because of what he did, but because of how little remorse he showed. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who couldn't even pretend to care that he'd destroyed me. That silence between us stretched into days. And in that silence, something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I shut the curtains, turned off my phone, and sat in that house like a ghost. The betrayal replayed in my mind like a broken record. Every laugh they shared, every lie they told, every moment they stole from me, it haunted me. I'd walk through my living room and imagine them sitting on the couch while I was away. I couldn't escape it. The fury boiled beneath my skin, but the heartbreak anchored me in place. I was grieving two people who were still very much alive. What hurt most was the isolation. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. I felt humiliated, like I had failed somehow. Like I'd been too blind, too trusting. I replayed every moment, wondering if I missed something, if I could have stopped it. But eventually that self-blame turned into something else, resolve. I realized I didn't need their apologies. I didn't need closure. What I needed was justice. Not petty revenge. Not violence. But something that would shake them both to the core. I wasn't going to break. I was going to break them, with precision, with control, and with the truth. Sitting alone in the wreckage of my marriage, a plan began to form, slowly, deliberately. I thought about every humiliation they dealt me, every lie they whispered behind my back. I didn't want to scream at them. I wanted them to feel exposed, cornered, and completely powerless. And the only way to do that was to hit them where it hurt most. Their reputations. I knew them both. Knew their weaknesses, their egos, their obsession with appearing perfect to the world. So I decided to stage something they couldn't control. A dinner that looked innocent on the outside, but would become the stage for their downfall. I began making lists. What I needed. Who I would invite. How I would reveal the truth. I remembered how Vanessa always loved attention. How she thrived when she was the center of the room. And Daniel? He hated public confrontation. He would squirm under pressure. So I leaned into that. I called in favors. I reconnected with mutual friends. I made it all sound like a simple reunion dinner. Just a way to reconnect, to move forward. Neither of them suspected a thing. Because even in betrayal they still underestimated me. And that would be their final mistake. The invitation was carefully worded, warm, disarming, just the right amount of nostalgia. "Dinner at my place," I wrote. "Let's try to put the past behind us. I think we owe ourselves at least one honest conversation." I knew exactly how to bait them. Vanessa had always prided herself on being the bigger person, and Daniel's guilt made him vulnerable to anything that sounded like redemption. I sent the message through a private group chat and added a few of our close friends. I wanted witnesses. I wanted the stage set perfectly. Within an hour they both replied. Vanessa sent a heart emoji and wrote, "I'm proud of you for being open to this." Daniel just said, "Oh, I'll be there." Their cluelessness made me physically ill, but I forced myself to play the part. I cleaned the house. I picked out a dress that screamed serenity and control. I set the table like I was preparing for a celebration. And in a way I was. It wasn't just a meal, it was a reckoning. And by the time they arrived, every detail was in place. The wine, the playlist, the guest list, and the reveal that would blow their lives apart. The night of the dinner, my house looked like something out of a magazine. Candles flickered softly on a beautifully dressed table. The scent of rosemary chicken drifted through the air. I set each place with careful intent. Vanessa next to Daniel just across from me, so I could watch every twitch of discomfort as the truth unfolded. The lighting was warm, the music low and familiar. It was a trap, but a beautiful one. I wanted them to feel safe, even celebrated. Because people let their guard down when they think they're being welcomed. Friends arrived first, laughing and mingling, and I played hostess like nothing was wrong. Vanessa walked in wearing her favorite red dress. Ironic, given how much blood she'd metaphorically spilled. Daniel followed a few minutes later, quiet and reserved as usual. They exchanged a quick look, but nothing overt. I offered drinks, cracked jokes, made small talk. I watched their tension slowly melt as they realized this wasn't a confrontation, at least not yet. They had no idea that every word, every smile, every bite of food was just a step closer to the edge I was about to push them off. When the main course had been cleared and wine glasses refilled, I stood up, glass in hand. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. I smiled like someone making a heartfelt toast, and I began with memories. "I'm so grateful to have all of you here," I said. "This has been a hard year, but tonight is about honesty and closure." Vanessa beamed, thinking I was about to sing her praises. Daniel looked confused, then cautious. That's when I turned toward them. "There's something I've been holding on to," I continued. "Something I think you all deserve to hear, especially from the people sitting at this table." Gasps rippled through the room as I revealed everything, word for word, moment by moment. The affair. The lies. The messages I found. I didn't scream or cry. I just spoke calmly and clearly, detailing the timeline of their betrayal. Faces turned pale. Glasses stopped mid-air. I turned to my sister and said, "While you were telling me to fight for my marriage, you were sleeping with my husband." I turned to Daniel. "While I was planning our anniversary, you were planning hotel rooms with her." Silence fell. I let it stretch. Let them squirm. Let everyone take it in. Because this wasn't just about me, it was about the truth finally being louder than their lies. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She tried to speak, tried to cry even, but no one reached for her. No one comforted her. She was exposed, stripped of her charm, her manipulations laid bare under the dim, flickering candlelight. Daniel's reaction was quieter. He looked like a man who'd just been hit by a truck. He didn't deny it. He didn't defend her. He just sat there, shame crawling up his neck like a noose. They had no escape. No story to twist. Not with the receipts I had printed and passed down the table. My guests, friends, coworkers, even a few relatives, were stunned. Some covered their mouths. Others shook their heads in disbelief. What made it worse for them was realizing how many times they had unknowingly smiled at lies, cheered for a couple built on betrayal. One by one, people began to leave, not with a casual goodbye but with long, awkward stares of judgment. Vanessa tried to follow one of them outside, but the door was shut in her face. Daniel stood in the kitchen, speechless, surrounded by the wreckage of the world he'd helped destroy. And I stood in the eye of the storm, calm, because for the first time in months I was finally in control. I'll never forget the look on Vanessa's face when the mask slipped, when the reality of being outed publicly and completely finally hit her. The confidence drained from her like wine spilling from a broken glass. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But all she found were walls. Cold, distant, silent walls. Her mouth quivered, her voice cracked, and her signature charm turned into pitiful stammering. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, as if that would undo everything. As if betrayal becomes less vile when it's served with crocodile tears. Daniel wasn't any better. His face went pale, his body stiff like a man facing execution. But this wasn't sudden. This was a slow, methodical stripping of everything he thought he could control. He stared at the floor, hands clenched in his lap, completely powerless. No arrogance. No excuses. Just shame. And yet I felt nothing for him. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just cold detachment. Watching them squirm wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my story, my dignity, and making sure they both knew that I wasn't the woman they betrayed. I was the woman who burned the house down and walked out smiling. After that night, everything changed, and not just for me. Word of the dinner spread like wildfire. People talked. Whispers turned into full conversations. Friends who had once praised Vanessa for her loyalty now turned their backs in quiet disgust. She became the cautionary tale at brunches and the subject of whispered gossip in family circles. No one wanted to be associated with someone who could do that to her own sister. Invitations stopped coming. Mutual friends unfollowed her. Even our aunts, who used to defend her blindly, called to tell me they were ashamed. It was like watching a queen get stripped of her crown in the middle of a town square. Daniel didn't fare any better. His professional reputation took a hit. Several of our mutual acquaintances worked in similar circles, and words like disloyal, disgraceful, and coward began to follow him into meetings and behind closed doors. His charm had always masked his mediocrity, but now the mask was off. Clients pulled away. Opportunities dried up. And the silence that followed wasn't kind. It was the silence of doors quietly closing forever. Meanwhile, I watched from a distance, not with glee, but with the quiet relief of someone who no longer had to carry the weight of lies on her back. At first, I didn't know what to do with the silence that followed the storm. My house was quiet. My phone barely rang. The routines I had built around Daniel and Vanessa were suddenly gone, and in their place was a void I didn't know how to fill. But over time that emptiness became space. Space to think, to heal, to rebuild. I started small, morning walks, long drives, journaling every night. I signed up for a cooking class, joined a local book club, and poured myself into work with a focus I hadn't felt in years. And slowly I felt the pieces of myself coming back together, not in the same shape as before, but stronger, sharper, more intentional. I also learned to let people back in. Real friends, the ones who stood by me even when things got messy. I shared the story not out of bitterness but as a way to own it. I stopped shrinking from the pain and started using it as fuel. Therapy helped. So did laughter and long dinners with people who didn't lie to me. I moved out of the house Daniel and I once shared and into a new apartment that was entirely mine. Every piece of furniture, every painting on the wall. I chose it. It was my life again. Not a survival story. A rebirth. Months later, Vanessa reached out. Her message was long, dramatic, and full of the kind of performative remorse that makes you roll your eyes. She wrote about how she never meant to fall in love, and how life just happened. She said she missed me. That losing me hurt more than losing Daniel. As if she hadn't made that choice with every sneaky text, every fake hug, every time she looked me in the eye and lied. She didn't apologize for the betrayal, she apologized for how it made her feel. That's the kind of person she was. Always the victim, even in someone else's tragedy. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. I wanted her to know the silence was deliberate. I wanted her to sit with the echo of everything she destroyed. That message sat in my inbox, unread, like a ghost she couldn't exorcise. And every time I saw it, I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Just a sense of finality. Her words didn't deserve my response. Her pain wasn't my responsibility. She made her choice, and now she would live in the world she created, without me in it. Daniel's downfall wasn't sudden. It was slow, humiliating, and deeply satisfying to watch from a distance. His new relationship with Vanessa didn't last long. Of course it didn't. Built on lies, fueled by lust, and held together by nothing real, it crumbled under the weight of their guilt and shame. They tried to make it work, but trust doesn't grow in the soil of betrayal. They fought. Publicly. Friends who once played neutral began backing away. And eventually they broke up in a mess of accusations and resentment. Daniel moved into a tiny apartment on the edge of town, alone, unnoticed, and unremarkable. Professionally, things got worse. He'd burned too many bridges. Word got around. No one wanted to work with a man who would betray his wife for her sister. It said something about his character. And in the circles we moved in, reputation was everything. He tried reaching out once, months after the dust had settled. He left a voicemail. He sounded broken. Tired. I messed everything up, he said. I never stopped loving you. I deleted it. Because by then I had rebuilt my life. And he was nothing more than a lesson I'd already learned. People sometimes ask me if I regret the dinner. If I regret exposing them so publicly, so brutally. And the truth is, not for 1 second. That night was never about revenge for the sake of pain. It was about truth. About reclaiming my power in a world that had robbed me of it. About refusing to let liars rewrite my story in whispers and shadows. I gave them the chance to come clean, to show an ounce of respect for what we had, and they didn't. So I wrote the ending myself in full view of everyone who mattered. Regret is what you feel when you lose control. But I took control back that night. I stopped being the woman they pitted and became the woman they couldn't ignore. It wasn't easy. It wasn't painless. But it was necessary. And more than that, it was right. I didn't ruin their lives. They did that all on their own. I just held up a mirror. And in that reflection they saw themselves clearly for the first time, without charm, without spin, without the lies. That's not revenge. That's justice. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes it comes with silence, with control, with a plan so cold and sharp it slices deeper than any screaming match ever could. What I learned through all of this is that true power isn't about how loud you are. It's about how clearly you can see. I saw their weaknesses. I saw their patterns. I studied them, understood them, and then used that knowledge to dismantle the very fantasy they had built behind my back. I didn't lose my mind. I found my strength. And I wielded it with surgical precision. There is a kind of sacred satisfaction in not stooping to their level. In staying calm while chaos erupts around you. In letting people reveal who they are without lifting a finger. That dinner wasn't just a reckoning for them. It was a coronation for me. I stepped into my own power, not by becoming cruel, but by becoming undeniable. And once you feel that, once you take that first step toward your own liberation, you never go back. You never shrink again. Revenge didn't consume me. It clarified me. It showed me who I really was. If I could go back and do it all again, the dinner, the exposure, the brutal honesty in front of those gathered eyes, I wouldn't change a single detail. Not the table setting. Not the timing. Not even the cold smile I gave Vanessa when she realized her world was crumbling. Because that night I didn't just get even. I got free. Free from the lies, the gaslighting, the weight of pretending everything was okay. I turned my pain into a weapon. Not to harm, but to defend the version of me that deserved better. And that woman, she's still here. Stronger. Smarter. Unshakable. I don't walk through life waiting to be betrayed anymore. I walk with open eyes, clear boundaries, and the fierce knowledge that no one gets to define me but me. So would I do it again? Absolutely. Not out of bitterness, but out of love. For myself. Because sometimes, the only way to heal is to confront the wound head-on. And let it bleed so it can finally close. My husband and my sister thought they'd destroyed me. But all they did was give me a stage, and I made damn sure they were the ones who couldn't walk off it. And that was the night everything changed. Do you think they deserved what happened at that dinner? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story gripped you, hit that subscribe button for more shocking true tales of betrayal, justice, and revenge. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next.